Welcome
to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, Triple P Nation, welcome back. So excited you guys are joining me this week. Got an incredible guest for you. Her name is Amberly Lago, and she is the author of the new release, Joy Through the Journey, which is already USA Today best-selling book. Just had an incredible conversation. If you guys want to learn how to improve your ability to overcome, to learn how to be more resilient, to how to step into your grittiness, Amber's got an incredible story of her own travails through her experience, and it's quite remarkable. You're going to learn about how to shift your mindset if you're struggling with negativity and you're looking away to bring more positivity into your life. She talks about the importance of connection and how connection either is the fuel for your growth or it creates resistance if you don't have connection or the wrong connections. Amberly has been featured in Forbes, USA Today, The Doctors, on Hallmark. She was recently on the Ed Milet Show. So the real deal here. Plus, she's a podcast host as well, too. You're going to love her stuff. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Amberly. Triple P Nation, welcome back. As I mentioned, incredible guest this week. So excited to interview Amberly Lago. We just had an incredible conversation. We realized we weren't even recording, Amberly. It's just amazing. Like we've been friends forever. So first of all, thank you for coming on. And we're so excited for you to share your wisdom. You have an incredible story and you've experienced great success, but a lot of struggle along the way, which we all do. And so it's a real privilege to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we were talking. I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. We're recording a podcast. But I said, I think you've got a friend for life because we have so much in common.
That's for sure. I'm looking forward to our new friendship for sure. So my audience, is, as I mentioned, they are so focused on growth, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. We all have our struggles. We all have moments in life where we get kicked in the teeth and, do we get back up? Do we, keep moving forward? Is our purpose strong enough and powerful enough that it keeps moving us forward? You have had a lot of moments in your life where you could have just stopped, crawled into a ball, and just given up. So first of all, would you tell us a little bit about your background and some of the struggles that you went through, and then we'll kind of get into what you're doing today and your books and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And I actually, lots of struggles, lots of failures, lots of falling flat on my face. And actually, this past year has been the biggest struggle with my health. I had a treatment for a nerve disease I was diagnosed with called complex regional pain syndrome that did not go well at all. And I was actually back in a wheelchair. And so I've had a nurse actually on speed dial that comes over to the house and gives me IV treatments that have really helped. And then I just got blood work done and all that. So hopefully I'm getting better and better. So I just wanted to start by sharing that because, yeah, we all have struggles. And there's been times where I've gone, gosh, and my husband tells me, he says, Amberly, you don't have to do so much. But what I do and how I serve people is what lights that fire up inside me. It's what gives me joy. It is what gives me purpose. And I think when we have that purpose, it pulls us through challenges and hard times. I was going through probably the biggest challenge of my life 14 years ago. You and I have a lot in common with the fitness industry, and I was in the fitness industry for 26 years and had a thriving business. I taught other trainers how to get certified and become a trainer and run their businesses. I employed several other people and was sponsored by Nike. I was on vitamin labels, which was pretty crazy to walk into Rite Aid or Walgreens and see all these vitamins with a picture of me on the bottle. And I was coming home from work. I had just ran my best time with my running partner and beat him for the first time. So I was on top of the world. I was like, yeah, I won. And I jumped on my Harley and I was coming home and just cruising along Ventura Boulevard. And this SUV just shot out of a parking lot. I don't know to this day if he didn't see me or he was trying to beat traffic, but I was punched, like not just kind of tapped. I was really hit hard, thrown 30 feet, and then I was sliding across the asphalt.
Hmm.
And I just remember, Ventura Boulevard in LA is a busy street, and I couldn't see what was happening. And I was just trying to curl in a ball, thinking, please, God, don't let another car hit me. And when I finally came to a stop, I looked down at my leg once and only once because it is crazy to look down and see your leg completely. It was just crumbled into pieces. My foot was dangling off and there was blood everywhere. And I didn't realize at the time it's because my femoral artery was actually severed. And, I really feel like I had a guardian angel because there was a guy that came over right away and he took his belt off and wrapped it around my leg, and he saved my life.
Yes.
And paramedics were right down the street at the Coffee Bean, and they heard the accident. They started running towards me before they even got the call. And so I just feel so blessed that there was also a nurse that was driving by and stopped, and she came over and she held my hands and she was like, I need you to breathe with me. And so I feel like I had a lot of angels in my life in that moment. And rushed to the hospital. It was just chaotic. My husband's a former lieutenant commander, and news travels fast in the brotherhood and sisterhood of the police force. And so the whole ER was filled with cops. And I heard this crying, and it was actually my husband, and he's a first responder. I'd never seen him cry. He's this big, strong, tough guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm dying. I might be dying. And in that moment, I yelled across the ER and I said, honey, I need you to get over here and be strong for me.
Hmm.
Because in that moment, I needed to know that he was going to be okay to take care of our two kids. And that's the last thing I remember before I was put in induced coma because I'd lost so much blood. My vital organs were shutting down. They couldn't control my pain. And apparently, when I was in a coma, they were going to amputate my leg. So, being a former professional dancer and my whole business being around fitness, my husband was like, "No, no, no, no. Do not amputate her leg. I want that to be her decision. I want her to wake up out of a coma with both of her legs." And so now to this day, when we get in an argument, he's like, "Don't you forget, you got both your legs because of me." And so I'm like, "Okay, you win." But I woke up out of a coma, and that's the first thing I learned was they said, "I'm so sorry. Your leg is like a war wound. There's nothing we can do for you. You have a 1% chance of saving your leg, so we need to amputate." And all I heard in that moment was, I have a chance. There's a chance. There's a 1% chance. That's still a chance. And I said, well, we need to find a doctor who's willing to take that chance. And we found one doctor, a trauma specialist, Dr. Don Wiss, who is incredible. And he was willing to save my leg. And that took an act of God to get transferred to a different hospital because no one wanted to take responsibility for me in case I died on the way to the other hospital. But I got transferred, and surgery after surgery, 34 in total, they saved my leg. And I thought the worst was over. But then when I went in for a checkup, I was actually diagnosed with an incurable, supposedly incurable nerve disease called CRPS, which leaves you in constant chronic pain. It's dubbed the suicide disease. And I think if you're listening, you're like, well, I pray you never get hit by a car. So if you're listening and going, I don't know if I relate to that, I feel like we've all been hit by something, whether it's our finances or our health or our relationships, our business, whatever it is. And what I've learned through this process is pain has actually been my biggest teacher. And I've learned that there are absolutely ways to get through adversity and challenges. And there are ways to thrive. And there are ways to, even despite pain, whether it's emotional or physical or financial, that pain and joy can coexist and that you can choose to build upon the joy. It's up to you. And it starts with our mindset.
100%. Your story is compelling. I don't think people appreciate or realize is that when a femoral artery is severed, you just have minutes to live. if you don't control the breathing. So you really were on the doorstep of death.
Yeah, I had no idea that my femoral artery was severed, but when I look down and you could it's just like the movies, I will tell you, in
Yeah,
real life, it's just like the movie where with every heartbeat, there is just like a geyser
sure.
of blood with every pulse. And I'm kinda glad I didn't know that my femoral artery was severed because you can literally bleed out in minutes. And
Sure.
so I wish that I knew who this man was that came over, and to this day, I don't know who it was. I just call him my guardian angel.
Wow. That is so crazy. It wasn't your time. God had other things planned for you.
Well, it's funny you say that because my husband says, like, I've been back in the ER. I've actually been back in ICU since then, and he'll be like, "Oh, it's not your time. God just keeps spitting you out. You just won't die." And I'm like, "Stop it."
Oh, well, look, you got to have some humor too, right?
Yes, it's what gets us through a lot
For sure.
is the humor, for sure.
Over how long a period of time were your 34 surgeries?
I was in the hospital the first time for about 3.5 months, and then I begged, "Please let me out, please." I mean, I begged to get out of the hospital, and I got through that first stay, which was a miracle, with no infection. In the hospital, I would have a surgery, then a day of recovery, then a surgery, then a day of recovery, back to back to back. When I got out, I would have a surgery, like, sometimes every 6 weeks, sometimes every 6 months, and I'm actually scheduled for another surgery, supposed to be on May 1st, and my doctor's awesome, and I went into my doctor and I was like, "Hey, I know that you have scheduled this surgery, but I just booked a speaking gig that same week, and I really wanna do this speaking event, so." And he's like, "It's okay. We can put it off a week," you know?
Yeah.
So it was like I was strengthening my body and my mindset for war. I I really would get out of the hospital, and I remember there was one day I had gotten out, and the next day I was in the hospital and I was doing the row machine, and I couldn't use my right leg because they had put a nerve block in it. And I wore like a fanny pack of this nerving solution around my waist, and there was a line that went straight into my leg, and I had this big cast on my leg, and I was still at the gym, and people at first, when I would go back to the gym, would look at me like I was crazy, like, "You shouldn't be here." And then they just got to know, "Oh, there's Amberly. She just had another surgery and she's back." And I did that and I got back in the gym. I was at the gym in my wheelchair, using a walker, back on crutches, hobbling around, walking, back on crutches. And I did it so much for my mental strength because it made me feel like I was moving in the right direction. And in fact, I think moving your body moves your mood. And it's scientifically proven that it releases these feel good hormones. And so I think it's movement is so important. And actually, when I was in the hospital the first time, I was completely bedridden, so I couldn't even get up to use the bathroom on my own. I had a bedpan and I had dreadlocks on the back of my head when I could finally sit up and raise my head up, and had to have my hair cut just because I had been in a coma and then bedridden for so long. And I asked the doctors for a pull-up bar, and they're like, "Excuse me, what?" I said, "Yeah, I need a pull-up bar installed over my bed." And I asked one of my friends who was a trainer at a gym where I worked, to bring me some dumbbells, and I still have those dumbbells in my closet right over here, and I think he stole those from the gym. Sorry about that. But it wasn't like I was trying to get these big muscles. That would have
Sure.
been nice because I lost 20 pounds of muscle in the hospital. But I knew that if I could move my body however I could, it would build my confidence and it would give me something to look forward to, something, a sense of accomplishment, and allow me to focus on I'm moving forward. I might be stuck in this bed, but I am still doing things to strengthen myself. And I think it's important because I hear people say a lot like, well, I have this nerve disease too, and I don't know how you can work out. And I'm like, well, on days where it's really bad, I work out standing on one leg. even my daughter, who I don't like to complain, I don't like to focus on the pain, but my family knows me well enough that they can see it in my eyes. And, last night we were at Target and there was a long line, and my daughter looks at me and she could tell I wasn't complaining, but she could tell I was still in pain. And she goes, "Here, mom, just stand on one leg like this." She's just so compassionate and empathetic and caring. And there are always ways to work around things. You can work out. I could work out sitting down. Like I said, I worked out in my wheelchair. It's just moving however you can, even if it's just focusing on your breathing. It allows you to keep moving forward.
So you just PR'd minutes before you were in the accident, the peak of physical condition, feeling great, energy levels high, and then the accident occurs and you go through all this. Did you struggle with depression? I mean, obviously pain is such a strong emotional motivator. Did you struggle with depression thinking, I was here, look where I'm at? Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, I did in the hospital. It was one level of struggle, but I had such high hopes. Like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get
Yeah.
better. I'm just going to get back to what I was doing. Gratitude and writing down what I was grateful for in the hospital really allowed me to shift my perspective because it allowed me to focus on what I could do, what I could control, and let go of the rest and what I did have. But it was when I got out of the hospital and I was trying all these different things for pain. I mean, radical procedures where I'd never done a drug in my life. I wasn't even the kind of person that would take an aspirin. And now all of a sudden, I'm having ketamine infusions, Eastern, Western medicine. At one point, I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 different prescription medications, spinal blocks, spinal radio frequency, where the side effect of that could be paralyzation, stem cell. I mean, basically, anybody that said I can get you out of pain, I was like, okay, sign me up. I was a good candidate for any snake oil salesman out there that was like, we can get you out of pain. And when nothing was working, I started just feeling hopeless. And it was when I realized that I wasn't gonna be able to get back to my fitness business because, well, it was actually one day I'd had a surgery. I was training a client, my stitches busted open, and I was bleeding across the gym floor, and my husband was at the gym, and he's like, "What are you doing? You are bleeding across the gym floor." And it was in that moment that I was like, I can't keep doing this. Resilience isn't about bouncing back. I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. And when I decided to give up my clients and I lost that career, I mean, we had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses. We had a lien on our house. I was the main breadwinner, and now I'm out of work. I started getting depressed.
Yeah.
And that led me to I didn't want people to know about it. I didn't want people to know I was sad or in pain. I certainly didn't want them to see all my scars. I mean, going from being a professional dancer on TV and on stage and regularly contributing to Health Magazine and Fit Pregnancy and Shape, and now I'm deformed and scarred. Yeah, I got depressed. And I discovered wine, and I was like, "Wow, why didn't the doctors just tell me to knock a glass of wine back? Like, this kinda helps me numb out the pain and stuff down the shame and the feelings of worthlessness and just depression." And I quickly went from being this elite athlete to a full-blown alcoholic. And I thought, I really thought, how did a good girl like me end up like this?
Yeah.
I thought I was so different from so many alcoholics in my family. Like, I moved to California. I was going to make something of myself. I was always so career driven and oriented and focused on what the things I could do. And now I'm living out of a bottle. And it took getting radically honest with myself and asking for help that I got sober in 2016, and it changed my life. And then I was able to start rebuilding my life. But I was at the point where I was actually having thoughts of, well, my husband could find another wife. He deserves more. My kids could find another mom. This isn't the mom that they deserve. And I was about ready to give up. And there was just that little flicker of light left in me that gave me the courage. I think it was when I got on my knees, though, and I prayed. And I just asked God for help. And it gave me the courage to reach out to someone that I used to train. They were a former client of mine, and I knew that they were a recovering alcoholic. And it took so much courage to ask for help. And I asked her for help, and she goes, "Yeah, I'll get you to a meeting. I'll take you to a recovery meeting." And a week went by, Jay, I didn't hear from her. And I thought, I'm going to die. Like, I need help now. And so I just Googled 12-step recovery programs, and I found a meeting that I could go to that was when my husband was at work and my kids were in school. So I was now going from sneaking my drinking to sneaking going to recovery meetings. And I just kept going back because in those rooms, I heard hope and I heard God speaking through these women. And I saw that sparkle in their eye and I heard the laughter. And I thought, well, if they can get through this, then I can too. And so getting sober has given me the life that I have now. And I'm so grateful. And I still to this day get on my knees every morning and start my day with prayer because it reminds me of how small I am and how big God is in my life, and that He's also bigger than all my challenges or problems.
It's amazing when we surrender and we give our problems to Him, how the solutions begin to appear. So, did you have a relationship with God prior to that time, or was it like so many of us? It's kind of when we need Him, per se. You know what I mean? So, what was your relationship before, or that just kind of take it to a whole new level?
Definitely had a relationship with God, but it's interesting because, I grew up in Texas in the Bible Belt where you did not miss church unless you were dead. You did not miss church. And
Even then, you
so,
didn't miss church.
what?
Even then, you didn't miss
Yes,
church.
even then. Like, it's like you did not miss church, but the funny thing is I always felt like I had a different relationship with God because I grew up with this, fear of God, like, "Oh, the devil made you do that," and, "Oh, God's gonna punish you," or you know what I mean? And I didn't really feel as connected to God in church as much as I did when I was running track. So I was sexually abused as a child by my stepfather, and I never really felt safe in the home. And I intentionally sought after things that made me feel better, that made me feel stronger, that made me feel a sense of accomplishment. And so I really got into athletics and was at the dance studio 6 days a week. But in track, running, I was a long distance runner, and I really connected to God while running around the track. The whole time I'd be running, I'd be talking to God. And it then after, I grew up and moved when I was 18 to California, and I didn't realize until I moved back to Texas that where I connected most with God was up on the mountains and in my meetings here now in Texas. But I miss the mountains because that's where I felt really spiritually connected and really felt like I could fill my cup up spiritually. But I always had a relationship with God. But I think going through this, it really had me connected even more, but also, I keep God close. And actually, even though I don't go to church every Sunday, it's amazing. Our kids, they don't listen, but they see our actions. And my daughter came home from school and she had made me this ceramic frog. Isn't this cute? This little
Oh,
ceramic frog.
yeah, it really is.
And she's a very talented artist, and she gave me this frog and it's on my desk, and because she knows that always say, fully rely on God. And so every time I see a frog outside or something, I'm always like, yep, fully rely on God, and just keeping God close and asking, getting out of my own way and knowing that I'm not running the show and making sure I say my favorite prayers and connection. So I have a group of ladies. We call ourselves the God Squad, and we write what we're grateful for, and we connect with each other. So I think it's that connection with God, connection with my God Squad, being in prayer is how I do my best. I'm certainly imperfect and mess up a lot, but to stay spiritually strengthened, I just know I need to keep God close.
I totally agree. Same thing. It's just for me, it's just an important aspect that, that connection, that relationship when I'm not participating, even though he's always there. You know what I mean? It's are we participating? When I'm not doing it, I feel that sense of emptiness. And it's so important to me. You know what I mean? And so as I go through life, I make the time and make it a part of each and every day. And I notice my life is better as a result of doing that. So, you went through all this trauma. Did you write your first book, True Grit and Grace, after the experience? Was it kind of a cathartic experience? Because you talk about grit and resiliency. Did you know you were gritty and resilient before, or did this experience kind of expose your grittiness and resiliency and strengthen it?
I think that every experience that we go through allows us to work on our resilience and our grit. And I think that every hard thing that I've ever been through as an athlete, as a dancer, as an entrepreneur, I felt like every hard thing that I went through was preparing me for this moment, especially the mindset part. I grew up like, in a family where we didn't have much money. And if we wanted something, we had to work for it. I grew up with a coach that was, man, she was a drill sergeant, and she taught me mental toughness and how to push through pain. Same for my dance teacher. It didn't matter if our toes were bleeding, and I would be like, Miss Jackie, but my toes are bleeding. She's like, the show must go on. Are you going to do it, or should I have your understudy do it for you? And so I was taught, like, you have to work hard for something. But I think that surgery after surgery I learned a lot more about resilience and grit, but I had a lot of misconceptions about grit. I wrote my book, True Grit and Grace, after my accident. And by the way, I wrote that book before I didn't own a computer. I mean, just a little over 6 years ago, I didn't own a computer. I don't have a college education because I pursued my dreams as a dancer. I had a dance scholarship program instead. And when I had this idea to write a book, because I thought this could not have happened for just no reason, I want to turn pain to purpose and write a book that will inspire others and give people hope. And that was very cathartic. But I had everybody saying, right, you want to write a book. Why don't you stick to the fitness? You don't even own a computer. You don't have a college education. And I'm just sharing that I wrote a book, found an editor, bought a laptop, typed it up, got a publisher. It launched on the Today Show and became a bestseller. And the reason I share that, because if you're hearing this right now and you have that book inside you, this is your sign right now to write the book, because it can be the roadmap for somebody else to get through a hard time or a challenge. And you can turn, like I always say, turn your mess into your message. And so I think that going through surgery after surgery, falling flat on my face, being back in a wheelchair and getting back up, days where I get back from an event. I mean, yesterday I just got back in town. So I was speaking at an event in San Diego, and yesterday I was wiped out. And I think my husband he like gets PTSD because he has PTSD because he's seen me just crash and burn. And he's like, oh gosh, I think you're starting to crash. Don't go to the gym and work out. I think you need to call your nurse. And I'm like, I'm going to be okay. The misconceptions that I've had about grit were that grit without connection is resistance. It feels like we're clawing our way to the top. It feels like we're on the brink of burnout. We are hitting obstacle after obstacle, but grit with connection is where we truly find resilience. And I have learned to take contrary action because my default was to go into isolation mode once I had pain or I was in struggle. I just didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to see. And what I've learned is that vulnerability can be your superpower and it allows you to connect on a deeper level. And that allows you to be more resilient. And if you can take one thing away from this whole interview today is let it be this, that you don't have to do it alone. You're strong, but together we become unstoppable. It's when we come together is where we truly find resilience, and it can be I know it's changed my life. It's saved my life just having that connection and that community. And so I think that going through all the surgeries, still dealing with constant pain has allowed me to tap into resilience on a deeper level and to also kind of redefine what grit is.
Yeah. I think it's so important, that statement, grit without connection leads to resistance, because we isolate ourselves and we start to believe the story we tell ourselves in our heads. You know what I mean? Whatever life situation that you're dealing with, we start to believe the story we tell ourselves. And there's no filter. There's no one there to check us per se. There's no one there to offer a different perspective. There's no one there to maybe inspire us to think a little bit differently. And I think so often when we experience trauma, whatever that trauma looks like, because we're feeling shame or guilt, sometimes we think we caused it or other people perpetrated it upon us, that we don't want to reveal that either we allowed ourselves to experience this, that we isolate ourselves and we just get stuck in with these emotions, and it just perpetuates and it gets deeper and deeper. The hole gets deeper. It gets so hard to pull yourself out of it. And so I think that's a great takeaway that, you shared with my audience here today, is that connection is the key. I really never heard anybody mention it like you have here before. If you've got connections, that's why I've always said, right, the people you surround yourself either elevate you or they pull you down. And so if you've got a strong network, it could lead you to places you could never imagine.
Oh my goodness. And Jay, I know you have an event coming up in November that I'm going to try to make. I wish that more people knew how powerful it is to get in a room with like-minded people, with passionate people, with go-getters, the people that choose to be the victor of their life and they're not playing the victim.
Right.
I know that after this and being diagnosed with this, you know, supposedly incurable nerve disease, I was looking for I didn't know what it was. I was in denial. I didn't want to admit I had this disease. And I had this doctor say, you know what? You'll never work again. You need to get back in your wheelchair. He told me I'd never walk again. And I was like, that is not the life that I see for me. It's not the vision that I hold for myself. And I remember, just searching for what is this freaking nerve disease? What is this? And getting into a support group, and it was the wrong group for me because God bless them, but they were just complaining, talking about the problem. And I'm like, no, no, no. I want to talk about the solution and I want to talk about big dreams and I want to talk about holding that vision and action steps to go after it. And I think the main reason I love being able to go speak at events is because I love connecting with people. Also, this is wild, but the only time I feel no pain, absolutely no pain, is when I'm on stage. That gives me hope because I think, well, then if I'm in no pain then there's hope that I can be in no pain forever,
Sure.
or for a long time anyway. And I think it's because when I'm on stage, I just ask God to speak through me, but I also love seeing the spark in people's eye, like transformation happen right before my eyes. And when you get in a room with people who have big dreams and they've got that, mindset of success, and you can tell them, hey, I want to write a book. And they're like, awesome. How can I help you promote it? Instead of, oh, you can never do that. It is life changing. All it takes is one room, one conversation, and it might not even be in that room. It might be in the hallway or in the bathroom at that event. You just never know how that can change your life. And so that's why I, love speaking at events, but also love going to events and supporting my friends who are having events because it fills your cup.
The greatest investment you'll ever make is in yourself, not in the stock market. The return is a lifetime. And it's the one thing I talk about often is that if you're not setting aside a certain percent of your income each year to reinvest you're not making your best investment. And so it's so critical. And I love that you said that because a group can either propel you or hold you back. I was taking a note as you were speaking.
I was
You know,
taking a note right now. I'm writing down what you said.
Good. We're giving each other good nuggets. I like it. Is that, negativity is 2 times as powerful as positivity. And people go, well, no, 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 no. Seriously, it is. Because anthropologically, we were, genetically, we're wired for negativity based on fight or flight because it's survival. We're always, beginning of time, we're looking around the next tree is where was the next threat? Are we the hunted rather than the hunter? And so we're, again, neurologically, we're wired to look at the downside and negativity for self-preservation. So now you put a group of people, let's say 4 people, one person is super positive and the other 3 are super negative. Those 3 super negative will begin to suck the life out of the super positive. And over time, that super positive person, if they don't remove themselves from that environment, will turn into the super negative. So who you surround yourself with, how you insulate your mind, what you allow into your mind is going to be just as determinant to your success as anything. And I think that's such an important point that you brought out because I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Oh my goodness. I have a whole chapter in my new book, Joy Through the Journey, about energy vampires. And I realized more than ever when you are trying to heal through a surgery or you're just dealing with chronic pain, I become hypersensitive. I think energy is everything and everything is energy.
I totally.
And you can feel somebody's energy, like I felt your energy from the moment that we got on this call and I was like, "Oh, you're my people." You can feel somebody's energy, I think, through social media. You can feel it when you get that call and you see their name pop up on your phone. It's either a, "Oh, I'm so excited to talk with them," or, "Oh gosh, what do they want now?" And I had my assistant, she knew I was doing an interview for the news on energy vampires, and she goes, "What's an energy vampire?" And I said, "It's somebody who literally sucks the life out of you." It's like
Yeah.
they just want to suck all the energy out of you, and you can say you won the lottery and they're like, "Oh, but you're gonna have to pay taxes on that." I call them the doggy downers, and I just wanna stick with the puppy uppers, and my husband always makes fun of me for saying that, but I'm like, "Yeah, I wanna be with the puppy uppers. I wanna be with the people who are like, they see." And you know what? I think you can train yourself to see the good in a
Hmm.
situation. I'm not the most positive person, but I work on it, and the
Sure.
minute I catch myself with a negative thought or going down that, because I wake up some days, most days, and go, "Oh, see, you're limping. You're in so much pain. You aren't going to be able to work out. Like maybe you should just, who do you think you are? Just give up." Like I have those thoughts and I have to flip the switch on it, flip the script. And I've learned to talk to myself instead of listen to myself and listen to that inner critic and any inner bully.
Which makes what you do even more authentic because every day you're still fighting the battle, right? I mean, the effects of the injury, the surgeries, the nerve problem that you're dealing with is, it's there. Maybe someday it'll go away, maybe it won't. But the point is that every day you have to show up and you have to consciously choose. And that was the point I was going to make is that often you had mentioned, you can sense, you said all life is energy, and I 100% agree, right? So if we are in a state of awareness, in other words, we're consciously processing what's going on around us rather than living in subconscious, which is about 90% of what we do every day. We go through rote memory, habitual behaviors, not even thinking why I'm doing this.
Mm.
So very small percent of what we do every day is conscious. And what I encourage people to do is just shift that a little bit, another 10%, another 20% per day. Be more consciously aware of what's around you, who's around you, the energy you're putting out, because the energy you put out is an energy you're going to receive back, which is also going to be the people who you're going to attract in your life. So if you're constantly attracting the same negative person who's a taker instead of a giver, who is negatively emotional or abusive, that's because, and this is a hard thing for some people to grasp, we're putting that out and we're
Mhm.
attracting that. So we have to change our tone and our signaling so we get something different back. But that only happens through awareness.
Yeah, and it's so true you say that, and I remember when I started my mastermind, so it's called the Unstoppable Life Mastermind, and I actually started it. It was launching, and I'd worked on building this 43-page workbook and all this stuff that went along with it. And I was launching it on March 16th, 2020. And I remember that date because it was my birthday
Uh-huh.
and it was the day the world shut down and stopped. And my husband was like, "You are launching something called Unstoppable when the world has stopped." And I was like, "Yep, I
Pretty
sure
ironic.
am." Yep. But I prayed and really wanted faith-filled, passionate women who wanted to make a positive impact in the world. And it's wild. That's what I got. That's what I still get. And it's amazing to me. You're so right. You attract what you're putting out there and I feel like you attract who you authentically are. Like, you can't fake authenticity. You know what I mean?
Sure, 100%.
You just, I feel like you can sense that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no question about it. Not to be political, but we just had a presidential election. And the candidate who lost, everyone says one of the reasons she lost is because she wasn't authentic. People didn't know who she really was. And it came off as that. And that's all I'm saying in regards to it's not right or left, but that's what the people were saying. Why? And it's something that you could feel. You know it's there or you know it's not there. So your book, The Joy Through the Journey, which is a USA Today bestseller, tell me what inspired, by the way, congratulations.
Can you believe that? I'm
That's
just
fantastic.
saying, when I found out, I cried.
Yeah, that's
I cried.
fantastic. Yeah. When was it released?
February 11th is, yeah, February 11th. They moved the date up. It was supposed to be released in March, and they said, "Can we get it out there a little earlier?" And I was like, "Okay, sure. Well, let me just make sure I got everything together." And I have to tell you a funny story. So I was running out the door. I was headed out. I was getting an Uber on my way to the airport to go speak at an event. And my assistant FaceTimed me, and I didn't have my phone on me. And right then I was packing up stuff in my office. And so I answered on my computer. It popped up on my computer, and I'm like, she always FaceTimes me. It's that younger generation that they don't call, they FaceTime, they video. And so I get on the phone, she goes, "Are you sitting down?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, I want you to video this." And I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do wrong?" My first thought was, what did I do wrong? Am I in trouble? Like, and she goes, "No, I need you to video this." And I'm like, what is going on? So she's talking to me, and my internet's kinda cutting in and out. I'm like, "I can barely see what's going on." And she said, "You got USA Today. You hit the USA Today bestseller list." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And I was crying. And then I looked down, and we have a new puppy, and the puppy had chewed through the internet cable. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I get the internet cable, and I'm holding the cable up, and my husband walks in my office, and I was like, "Honey, I'm so sorry." He goes, "Your Uber's here." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, Nugget chewed through the cable, but I got USA Today bestseller." And he was like cussing. He was so mad, "Out of all the cables." And I'm like, "Okay, well, glad he's celebrating with me. Threw the cables down, ran out and got my Uber. But I was just like, yeah, I was crying. It was like, wow, a big deal. So yeah, it's been a journey, especially, when I started a little over 6 years ago and didn't even own a computer. So if I
Yeah.
can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah. And you said, you talk about not owning a computer, not going in college, which that's a whole nother conversation, but it doesn't matter. Again, whatever story we tell ourselves, whatever obstacles or blocks we want to put out there. So I can't do this because of that, or this, or I'm too short, or I'm too tall, or what. Guys, it's just all bullshit. It's all it is, right? So we have to examine and look at the stories we tell ourselves. Are these really truths? Are these truths that we accept that someone told us that got downloaded into our subconscious mind that we accept it as a truth, but it's really not because we can change it anytime we choose to?
It's so true, so powerful. And I think that being a professional dancer really helped me with that because I got no's all the time. I was told I was too tall, too fat, too skinny, too muscular, not the right hair color, hair's too curly, hair's too straight, like you name it, too old, too young. And I was just like, well, you know what? That's one step closer to the next yes. I have to get
Right.
so many no's before I get the yes. And so it's all how we frame it. Because in entrepreneurship, there are definitely a lot of no's. And if we take that personally, instead of just going, okay, well, what can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? Well, what can I do next? You can get stuck or give up. And I see so many people so often giving up. I actually had somebody that was in my mastermind and she had been trying to be a speaker for a year and gave up because she hadn't hit the big stage yet. And I was like, do you realize I spoke in coffee houses, in rehab clinics, at the Betty Ford Clinic, at, basically any place, Chamber of Commerce, Dress for Success, any place that would have me speak, and I was speaking for free just to get those reps in until I finally was making the right connection and building those relationships and getting on bigger stages. It takes time, it takes grit, it takes resilience, and it takes getting back up and just not giving up.
100%. You know, in your book, we're talking about this, right? In your book, Joy Through the Journey, you talk about how to help people shift their mindset from negative to more empowering or positive mindset. So I'm interested for you to share some tactics or tools that you teach people on how to make that shift.
Well, the easiest thing to do, the quickest and easiest way to do that is with gratitude. And I know people talk about gratitude a lot, but it's my medicine. It was life changing for me because I remember being in the hospital bed and I've had people go, "Oh, well, you don't understand what I'm going through. I'm really going through a hard time." And I know sometimes it's hard to be grateful when you're really struggling, but I can promise you that there's always something to be grateful for. And I remember being in the hospital and staring down at my leg that was held together with these metal bars and not knowing, is today the day that they're going to amputate my leg, or tomorrow am I going to die? Is my husband going to leave me? Is he going to love me? Am I going to be able to chase after my kids? The list went on and on and on. And I was spiraling down, and in that moment, I just thought, you know what? I am grateful I'm alive. I have breath. I can't get outside, but I got a view and I can see the blue sky from my window. I have clients coming in and bringing me food and friends coming in to visit me. And that gratitude is what shifts my perspective throughout the day, because it's not just like, oh, I'm grateful all the time and things are just grand. It's like, no, a lot of times I have to shift it throughout the day because I can easily start to go down that path of negativity. And gratitude is the quickest and easiest way to feel better about your circumstances and your situation.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's one of the easiest ones to implement too, right? Because it's really just taking a contrarian view of whatever your mindset is. So if you're like you said, I'm stuck in this bed, well, I'm alive. So there's something to be grateful for. Or like you said, I can't be outside, but I have a window with a view and I can see the blue sky. So it's just a contrarian view of where your current mind state is to look at the opposite perspective. And that's where you'll find the gratitude in. And then gratitude is a habit, right? The more you do it, the easier you start to notice all the things to be grateful for. And one of my mentors taught me many, many years ago when I was going through my stuff. He said, start your morning with gratitude. He said, before you even get up out of bed, before you open your eyes, think of 3 things to be grateful for that particular day. And it was a game changer because immediately I shifted my energy from the moment I got out of bed, right? My energy shifted. So it's just a habit and a tool. If you put into place, you'll begin to notice significant changes. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and every night get in bed with my daughter and I say, "Tell me one thing that you're grateful for and what's the best thing that happened to you today?" Because, what we think about before we go to bed, it affects our subconscious and it affects how our day is gonna be the next day, and I didn't really my daughter would say something silly like, "I'm grateful because I was twerking today." And I'm like, "When were you twerking?" Like, "Okay," but she would kinda make fun of it, not take it seriously, and then I'll tell you a quick story. When we were in California, we were riding our Razors, those little scooters, and yeah, I still ride a Razor. And we were going through a crosswalk and this car comes flying at us, didn't see us, never slowed down, and hit us both.
Oh,
And
man.
thankfully, we were thrown back and not run over. And you listening, you're probably going, "Oh my gosh, your next book should be called Look Both Ways," because really, you seriously got hit by another car. But taken to the hospital, bruised up bad, bloody, but the CAT scan came back fine, no concussion, everything was good. So, like 5 hours later, we got released from the hospital. And while we were in the hospital, we were using laughter, we were being silly, like, we were focusing on the good, and my daughter could hear me telling the doctors and the nurse, like, "Thank you so much for helping us. I know this could be a lot worse, and I appreciate all that you're doing." Like, every single time they came over, I was just so grateful and telling them, "Thank you." And the lady next to us was not very nice, and they kept bringing us over crackers and applesauce and Jello and apple juice, like, we were getting all the treats, and the doctor came over and whispered, "I'm gonna get you out here as quick as possible." I was like, "Thank you so much," and so we got released right away, and we're walking out of the hospital, and my daughter is like she goes, "Mama, we were rolled in here on a gurney, and we are walking out like rock stars," and although I was kinda limping out, I realized, you know what? She gets it.
Yeah.
She could be walking out of here like a victim, in anger, but she is walking out of here with gratitude. And so I think it makes all the difference in your mentality, whether it affects whether you are gonna be the victim of your circumstances or you choose to be the victor.
Funny story to share with you, buddy and I. We used to travel a lot. We go to conferences, and we would go up to the counter of the agent, and we would just shower them with appreciation and kindness, and I mean authentically and warmth, and just the opposite what everyone else was doing. And then at the end, I would go, "Any chance there's an upgrade?" And like 8 out of 10 times, Emily, yes, let me see what I can do. Right. It's the old, honey versus vinegar. When you treat people with kindness and respect, and it's amazing what people will do for you. And it's not like, I'm doing it for an effect. It's a genuine thing that you want to do to treat people in a kind, respectful way. It reminded me of that story, and it's so true. And if you just change your perspective, the way people treat you will change as well too.
It's so true.
Yeah. So this has been fantastic. This has gone way faster than I anticipated. You've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So I want you to tell my audience first where they can find your book. Second, about your event coming up in April.
Oh, yeah, we talked about getting in the room, and I am so excited to gather passionate go-getters, entrepreneurs, especially aspiring speakers, people that want to share their message and really increase their influence and impact. And so I have the Unstoppable Success Summit. It's coming up here in Dallas, April 25th and 26th. You can find out more information on that at go.amberlylago.com/USS 2025. It's the 5th year that we've held the conference. And I'm excited, super excited about it. And then you can find my book at your favorite bookstore. This is wild. So I'm getting people sending me pictures that they're seeing it in the airport. So I just got one yesterday. Somebody found it at JFK. So that's exciting. So you can go look in your airport. And if you do see it there, send a picture to me. You can find me at amberlylago.com. It's AMBERLYLAGO.com. You can find out more about everything I'm doing, free assets there, coaching, mastermind, all the fun stuff, podcast, all that fun stuff. And I need to have you on my podcast, Jay.
It would be an honor. I would love to join you.
Yeah. Are you ever in Dallas?
I have family there, so we do. Not regularly, but I can make a trip.
Okay, let's make it happen. I'm like,
So,
let's make it happen.
so live and come into your studio is what you're saying.
Yes. So I have been on hiatus from the studio since the end of January because of the launch of my book and now the event. But as soon as my event is over, I'll be back in the studio. So it's a beautiful studio in Dallas. It's about 20-mile drive or 20 minutes in traffic from the airport. So it's easy.
I'll definitely make it happen.
Yeah, I would love to
talk
see
about it
you.
for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, our initial conversation, I knew this was going to go really well. I mean, we'd vibe, very similar. Messages are similar, but you've overcome a lot and you have so much to share, so much to offer. I'm sure you're changing lives in a very impactful way. And so I would encourage everyone to go out, get both our books. I haven't read True Grit and Grace. I want to read that first. And not that they're sequential, but of course, get the joy through the journey and check Amberly out. Follow her on social media. Check out her podcast because
You'll be on it.
Yeah, because I'll be on it. And this is someone you need to stay connected with because she's got a lot to teach you. So thank you so much for joining me today, Amberly.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I hope to see you soon in Dallas.
So Triple Knee Nation, as I always say, you be you, just be the best you. And I promise you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Until next week, be well.